Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today at our Iconic Conversation series for May. I want to start by acknowledging the First Nations people across the land of the whole of Australia and New Zealand and wherever you're coming from today. And I want to acknowledge their enduring connection to country, knowledge and stories, and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'm in Sydney and the owners of the land here are the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I'm Adina Jacobs, and together with Bobby Marlab, we started Mentor Walks more than 6 years ago with the intention of bringing quality mentoring experiences to women everywhere to help them build their networks, have inspiring conversations, and to support women as they work their way through their career challenges, big and small. We've been running these conversation series for the last 3 years, and they're free monthly events led by our mentors and driven by topics that our community asks us about. It's our partnership with the Iconic that allows us to bring you these monthly free events. So I want to take this opportunity to thank them for supporting us and for supporting our community. And thank you all for joining us today. Before we start, I'll ask you, well, we have already started, but before we continue, I'll ask you to please make sure that your on-screen name is your full name. It helps us to work out who's here today. So today we're doing things a little bit differently to our normal conversation series, which is usually one mentor either running a workshop or talking about a particular topic. Today we've brought together both mentors and mentees to tell their stories about shared career challenges facing women today. It's something we hear over and over again, that our mentees everywhere tell us that they feel alone in their struggles and challenges. Over more than 300 events that we've run that show us the experiences that we've had with all of these incredible women, that across the country, women are looking at for like-minded experiences and have similar ambitions, and they share similar challenges too. So you're not alone. Things that happen to you are also happening to other people, and there's a lot of people out there who have experiences that they can share with you. In this conversation series, you'll hear from our 3 most walk mentors on topics and problems their mentees ask about, plus their expert guidance on getting through. And we'll also be hearing from their mentees, women that they've walked with at Mentor Walks, and they'll each be sharing their experiences and perspectives. At the end, there'll be a little bit of time for questions, and at the right time, I'll ask you to drop your questions into the chat and who you'd like to answer if you've got someone specific that you'd like to hear from. So from here, I'm going to introduce our 3 mentors. I'm going to keep it brief so that we've got time to get into the conversation. And as they share their experiences with us, they'll be telling us a little bit more about them. So Sissy Ma is one of our mentors in Brisbane and one of our local leaders in Brisbane. She's Managing Director of Grow and Sell Your Biz. And I have to say that Sissy's commitment here is undeniable. She's in the States and it's 1:45 a.m. and she's here with us today to share her experiences. So thank you, Sissy. She helps businesses raise capital, increase valuation and sell. She's had 25 years and $17 billion worth of M&A experience. She's been a Correlus activator since 2018, an impact investor, founder of APAC Women's Mentoring Circle. She mentors for CPA Australia, UQ, Queensland Government, River City Labs, and Inspiring Rare Birds. Thank you for joining us today, Sissy. Ali Bradley is one of our incredible Hobart mentors. She is the Executive General Manager for Victoria and Tasmania for Southern Cross Austereo. Ali's forged a strong career in the media over the last 20 years with varied roles across Southern Cross Austereo, which is one of Australia's leading media companies, which reaches more than 95% of the Australian population through radio, television, and listener. In addition to supporting our Mentor Walks community, Ali's an active board member for Tennis Tasmania and St Virgil's College. And Renee Whiteside is our 3rd mentor joining us this morning. She's our local leader for Wollongong. Renee has been involved in Mentor Walk since the very first day of our Wollongong program, which I think is probably 5 years now. It's been a long time. Renee's been supporting us forever. She knows Mentor Walks in and out. She's a passionate supporter of mentorship and development of females in the Wollongong community. And she has extensive experience in senior HR roles in the finance and manufacturing sector with both international and domestic units. Renee has a broad relationship with the University of Wollongong through tutoring and mentoring students, and she sits on the University of Wollongong Advisory Committee School of Management. So thank you, Renee, for all of your support, and thank you all of you for being with us. So the way this is going to run now is that we'll have about a 25-minute conversation between Sissy, Renee, and Ali and I, where I ask them questions about what they've seen in their experience at Mentor Walks, what kind of advice they've been given, what questions are coming up, and what they think leaders and managers can do to support their mentees. From there, we're going to go across to our mentees, and each one of them is going to present a story of their experience with mentor walks, what they've learned along the way, and basically just share their experiences they feel are important to us. And then after that, we're going to go to the live Q&A session where you'll be dropping your questions into the chat. So I'm going to ask first, and I'll start with you, Sissy. What have you been asked most since you've been walking with us, and why do you think this challenge is really an issue for aspiring women?
Right. Thanks, Adina. Thanks for that kind intro, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak, and, a really good chat opportunity. We've got, over 100 people in this chat already. So I've been with, mentoring with Mentor Walks since like 2 years ago, I think, around 2 years ago. And I basically have done, I think I've done about 8 walks, and so not, not huge amounts, but reasonable, I suppose. And yes. I've had 19 mentees along the way, and they all come from different backgrounds. And some of them are, basically career women who are in employment, and some people are switching jobs and trying to switch jobs, or some people are looking to switch from a employment to start up a new business, given that I've been I've done that as well. And I think I've got quite a lot of women in that type of situation. And like I find that a lot of the times people are they ask a lot of different questions, but one of the things that really stand up is actually how a lot of women are feeling that they haven't got enough confidence, and they feel like they are a bit what's the imposter syndrome. It's there's a lot of imposter syndrome happening around the place, and I don't think I need to explain what the imposter syndrome is, right? So everyone knows what that is. So I think really, in terms of how we deal with that issue, I always give that example of where I think you mentioned about collarless. So I've been a collarless activator since 2018. And one of the things that we do is actually similar to what, this series was. And when we had an event on, imposter syndrome, we actually had a system talking about, okay, how do we actually deal with that? All of the, women around the world, how do we deal with that? And there is a theory that I think is a really good theory that I, since then I think I heard about it in 2020. And since then I've been practicing it every time I feel like a bit, I was earlier this week or earlier last week, I had to present to a group of, the boardroom, etc. and on something. And like before that, I was thinking about this framework that I can use. So the framework is about ANTS. ANTS. I'm not sure how many people actually know about that. I think Ali is nodding. So it's an automatic negative thoughts. It's what normally happens to us, but how do we actually counter against that? And one of the major things about that, there's this whole series about that. You can, go and Google it. I'm not going to talk about that, but what the thing that I wanted to mention is actually how do we, one of the things that I always think is actually, write down what actually, and it's counter against your negative thoughts. So if you're feeling inadequate, if you're feeling like you're in, imposter, and then just think about, okay, I'm going to on stage, what's the things that are actually saying I'm actually able to do it. It's not that, like these are the facts that says I'm able to do it. So sorry, I'm taking up too much time.
No, you're good. It's really important. What people really love to hear in these conversation series are practical things they can do to tackle their challenges. So thank you. That is very helpful. You're not taking up too much time. Yeah.
That's all right. I'll stop there and continue. Yeah.
Thank you.
If you need me to elaborate more, I'll do that later.
Thank you. And
That's
if you
it.
do have any resources, any of you that you want to share with our mentees and with the audience, we always send out a follow-up email afterwards so we can add those resources.
Oh, yeah, I'll put it in there. Mhm.
So Ali, can you tell us what you've been asked about a lot, and if you were in that situation, what you would do to try and tackle it at this point? And tell us about some of the advice that you've received around that same topic if you've been through it yourself.
Yes, certainly. And mine actually segues beautifully into sissies. One of the questions I get asked over the last 13 mentors I've worked with over 5 walks is about networking, and also then that imposter syndrome of asking somebody to network with you or asking them for a sponsorship or a mentorship, because people are uncertain sometimes. And I find as a woman, sometimes we don't want to harass anybody or don't want to waste your time. And one of the best bits of advice I ever got was just to actually ask somebody. There's an amazing lady, she's a president of a football club, and that dream that I'd love to be part of one day. And she said to me one time, why don't you just send me a LinkedIn message? I'd love to have a coffee with you, or a cup of tea, if you mean. And that advice was priceless, because I thought, why would she want to spend her time with me? But somebody had once had a coffee with her. So that networking doesn't have to be about 100 women coming together with a glass of wine. I think when we hear networking, and I have a rule of I'm not getting together for a nasty glass of wine. I'd rather get together with 2 or 3 women and have a chat about some of the challenges we're doing, or one-on-one with somebody on a challenge I might have. So it's actually networking. And it doesn't in large areas. In Tasmania, networking is important on a smaller scale. And these days you can cross all kind of zones. Sissy's dialing in from the other side of the world. And it's about, sorry?
So I was just going to say that one of the things that we find is that people are terrified of networking and they hate the idea of the word networking, but actually if done effectively, you make these incredible connections and you can support each other. It's not just a one-way street.
No, 100%. And as a mentor, I love when I do a session and afterwards a mentee will reach out and ask a question, follow up, or ask for a cup of coffee. Because if you're a mentor, it's often because you're quite passionate, and then you love hearing the follow-up stories about them. That's some of the most inspiring moments when I hear about I've mentioned something to a mentee and then they've enacted it and they've had a moment. And then I hope they can pass that along.
It's pretty incredible. So Renee, can you tell us a bit about what you've heard along the many, many, many walks that you've been at through all of the mentees that you've spoken with?
Yeah, sure, Adina. It continues to be the question around how do I progress my career whilst I'm about to become a parent or have carer responsibilities? How do I continue to progress my career when I return to work, where I require extra flexible working conditions, yet still want to progress my career? It is a question that is asked almost every walk that we have.
And so what can you share with us some of the guidance that you've given people around that?
Yeah, I think there's a lack of awareness both organisationally and also across, I guess, parents in general, that both the Fair Work Act and the Industrial Relations Act actually support and promote flexible working conditions. And I think, sorry?
People just don't know enough about it.
They just don't know enough about it. And in fact, flexibility for a young parent of a child under the age of school age is an entitlement under the Fair Work Act, providing that your role can accommodate that based on the service delivery that you provide. And so the advice that I'm continually giving people is if they think that they can do their role with flexible conditions, then the onus is on them to come up with a plan to demonstrate to the organisation how they can make this work. Now, in a best practice world, the onus absolutely is on the organisation, but sometimes we might need to help our organisation build and draft that plan. And what I'm seeing across industry at the moment in terms of different flexible work arrangements that parents are having and able to continue and progress their career is not just part-time work. It's not just hybrid work or working from home. It's also job share arrangements. Increasingly more, it's compressed hours in a working week. So working 4 days at a full-time load. And we're also seeing broken pattern of work, or broken shifts as we may call them. So parents wanting to work early in the morning, have a break in the middle of the day, and then working later at night as well. Again, pending the service delivery of their role and their organisation. But the answer there, Adina, is very much come up with a plan with your organisation and show how you can make it work.
I've got a specific question on that 4 days in or 5 days in 4. I know in Michelle Obama's book, she made a comment about how the women who work part-time are really just getting paid part-time for full-time work. Do you see that happening?
Yes, and that's exactly why when I had my third child, I asked to do compressed hours, because I initially was with my second child doing 4 days work, doing 5 days work, getting paid for 4 days work. And the concept of compressed hours is that you're still getting paid, I guess, a full-time load at 4 days. So yes, I do.
I haven't even heard of that concept. So I'm really happy that you brought it up. And it just goes to show that a lot of people just don't know what their entitlements are and what is out there and what's available to them, because they've been working in the same place for so long, or they just don't understand what the rules are. And so they don't know what the creative ways are to be able to work a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Renee. So the next question that I've got is, I really want to understand what the most valuable guidance each of you has received in, and it doesn't have to be about this particular topic that you've discussed now, but all of us have been mentees as well as being mentors as well. We all have people in our worlds who have been able to guide us along the way. So starting with you, Ali, what's the most valuable guidance that you've received?
Most valuable guidance I've received has been about investing in myself. I'm really good at putting in the hours, supporting other people or my career, and I love my job. But one of the things I hadn't done before is I didn't have any formalized education. And I'm currently, and I know there's a few ladies on this call that know me, but I'm currently finishing my master's, and I am obsessed with getting this MBA next to my name. I'm loving it because I'm learning something and it's passionate and I can invest in me, but I'm also finding the networking and just taking time to take time out and actually invest in that. And companies, a lot of them these days have study leave and bits that they're investing in as well. It doesn't have to be financial support. So if any of you are ever doubting and coming back to that imposter syndrome or thinking what's missing, for me, it was about formalizing my education and actually putting in something for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really good advice. I've thought about studying again a lot, and I can't quite figure out where I'm going to fit it in at the moment, but I really love the idea of it. And I do try and put myself in a position at mentor walks where I am constantly exposed to new things, because that's just a different type of learning. Amazing. Sissy, what about you? What's some valuable guidance that you've received?
I'd have to say is speak up. It's a very simple thing. It's just 2 words, right? Speak up. You wouldn't recognize me when I was, I think my first job was first full-time paid job was at Queensland Treasury Corporation. And I started that, in 1996 beginning. So it's dating me, but anyway, when I
around the same time, so don't worry about it.
You look much younger than me. Anyway, sorry. So when I started, I was very quiet, and I wouldn't speak up in meetings at all. And I think it has a lot to do with my culture as well, because people from Asia, we always, I mean, it's a generalization, but the general I guess a culture is that we do our work. We are very hardworking, but we do work and then hope for others to recognize or notice us. And we can't, boasting something is not a virtual. So we're not supposed, I think in Australia, there's that tall poppy syndrome as well, but in Asia, it's even worse than that. So anyway, when I started, I was just very quiet. I wouldn't actually talk, in meetings, etc. But when people ask me questions, I was always, I could answer the questions, and then people actually listen really well. So, after a little while, my first mentor actually, just pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Sissy, do you know that if you don't speak up, people won't recognize you?" So he made a special attention to ask me for my opinion, whenever he can, but I'm not, I don't have that opportunity to speak up myself. So since then, when he said that, he said, "Oh yeah, if you don't speak up, people don't know whether you agree with someone or not." Because for me, is that if I don't speak up, like if someone else are talking about the same thing and I agree with them, I won't say anything. but in fact, if I agree with them and I say something, that actually helps as well, in terms sort of making it they all understand and agree. So that's a really tiny little thing, but I think that's the thing that really kind of started to pivot my career. Yeah, as soon as you start to speak up, you get noticed a lot more.
I mean, you think it sounds like a small thing, but it really isn't. And so I'm going to just ask you a follow-on question from that. This is a gross generalization, but women tend to apologize for their presence in a room. Sorry, but I just want to say X, Y, Z. Do you have a way of like bringing yourself into the conversation that's a little bit more positive than that without apologizing?
Well, you don't have to apologize.
I know, but it's just a natural instinct sometimes. It's like you're breaking in, and so you feel like you need to apologize for that. And I know a lot of women would love to know, like, what are a few words you can use to break in there and show your support, or ask a question.
Can I say something? That is the word. It's like in the in political circles as well. They always say, can I say something? Can I something? Can I something? And that can I actually just, make your move in. And it's a lot more positive than saying sorry, I guess. No, I still say, I guess. I shouldn't say that.
I think we're all constantly training ourselves out of expressions that we don't.
That's right. You got to be conscious of it. And the next thing is actually, that's another one that I shouldn't use.
Renee, do you have a way that you, like a term that you use to break into a conversation like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's either, can I compliment what you're saying, or can I share my reflection on what I'm learning?
That's really nice.
And then I jump in with, I've got three thoughts on that to allow me to articulate 3 different things and hold the room so that I can get through 3 different comments or reflections.
That's really, really good. Thank you. And what has been the most valuable guidance that you've received around common things that you've faced across your career?
I think one of them is certainly to embrace parenthood. I was fearful when I had told my general manager that I was pregnant for the first time of one of 3 children. And he told me to embrace parenthood, and that would make me a more authentic executive leader. And I've done exactly that through the flexible working conditions that I mentioned, through leaving loudly, through talking about my commitment to my family, through validating, I guess, a work-life balance. So I have embraced parenthood by hopefully engaging and motivating, I guess, my team and colleagues around me. That's
amazing. And do you see them doing the same thing?
Absolutely. As soon as the executives start emulating that behaviour or role modelling it, they start to do it themselves. And then in turn, we very quickly see that we've got higher engagement and performance across the team.
So for people who don't have that kind of supportive environment, do you have any suggestions on what they can do so that they don't have to either sneak out or feel really bad every time they leave?
Yeah, I think it's about sitting down with your leader and coming up with a plan to tell them what your needs are and equally share with how you think you can meet the business needs to really cancel out any reservations that your manager may have. And then the final technique that I often use is, well, before you say no, let's focus on a trial period, whether that be 3 months or 6 months. If it doesn't work, we'll revert back to our usual way of working, but let's hold myself and the organisation to account on a trial period, and let's review and assess how we went. So a bit of a negotiation tactic. You're not looking for a yes, no answer. You go straight in with a, let's go for a trial period and see if this can work.
I think that's brilliant. Thank you. That is really, and like I said before, like everybody's looking for practical things that they can do to shift the dial. Everyone's having hard conversations, and these bits and pieces that you're sharing here are so valuable because they're, as leaders, they're tried and true in your own teams. You've seen them work effectively in your own careers, and they really help and support women who are coming to asking all of these questions, and they'll be able to walk into their work tomorrow or the next day with like really valuable things that they can use. Instead of being stressed about their challenges, they've got things that they can actually go in and proactively start the conversations with, which is pretty amazing. Thank you. So Ali, over to you for a second. I just want to understand from you, what have you found surprising in the times that you've walked with us, like questions that people have asked or conversations that have come up through your experience at Mentor Walks or any other mentoring experiences? What do you think is surprising and that could be valuable for the women here?
I think the surprising thing really is just the lack of awareness that we're all going through this, which is the whole theme of what we're coming through today. I think sometimes we just truly don't understand how we're all thinking it and how we're all questioning it. So the surprising thing to me at the start was I'm going, okay, hang on, we're all here together. And then probably the other surprising thing too is realizing how much the mentors want to network with each other. Again, that nasty word of networking, but how much we're also looking to support each other and grow. Because I probably wasn't expecting that from the mentors as well. I was probably just thinking of how I can help others, not realizing the other mentor components that come in. And then also that progression, as we're seeing a couple of our mentees have now progressed to become mentors. And that's, again, so rewarding amongst the group. So don't be afraid to speak up and tell the truth. You might be surprised.
Thank you so much. What about you, Renee? What have you found that's surprising?
3 things, Adina. The first thing would be, I'm surprised about the stories we're telling ourselves as females. I'm surprised that we continue to tell ourselves stories that may not actually be true in terms of our capability, our commitment, or our ability in the workplace. The second one I'm surprised about still is the barriers we continue to put up to request flexible working conditions or to be able to perform in the workplace and also be a superstar mum. And the third one I'm surprised about is really the lack of confidence that sometimes we present with after having children. And the reality is we're stronger, we're more resilient, we can multitask more, we can do 100 more things than we did pre-children. So I'm really surprised that we often default to those 3 points. And so in summary, a lot of the discussions I have is just reminding our mentees around their capability, around their passion, their drive, their commitment, and what makes them a whole person, and to bring their whole self to work so that they can be and sustain their career path.
Thank you. I mean, it really links back what Sissy was saying about reminding yourself why you're in the room. Like, you've earned your place in the room.
Yes.
Imposter syndrome sneaks in and makes you think you don't belong there. But if you can just sit there for a few minutes and remind yourself why you're sitting there, it can change your perspective on the situation.
Absolutely.
Sissy, what have you seen that's been surprising along the time that you've been with us?
I have to say, I generally don't get that surprised because all of the things that I've seen or heard, it's like I have heard that before, and I have read about it before, and then I suppose if you were saying what's really surprising, it is maybe that they, we all know about it, but we haven't actually done it, or we haven't acted and made it so that we things like all these strategies and practices we could be enforcing or we could be practicing, but there are things that we've heard about, but I think it's it's so important to actually see, hey, when you leave in any session, to actually say, hey, these are the things that I need to practice, and I will go and practice it, rather than, hey, I've heard about this and like I've heard them before as well, right? But how do I actually, whether I actually do it or not? Then you can, I mean, the worst thing is if you go to a conference or go to an event and then you learn something, but then you forget about it afterwards, right?
There's a name for that. That's the knowing doing gap. It's, all this information, you learn all of these amazing things, but you don't do anything with them. And it is extremely common. What we often find is a lot of our mentors get our mentees to make a commitment and follow up with them to say, yes, I'm going to do this, and then ask them to follow up and confirm that they've actually done it. The other thing that we do, which you would have all heard, is we ask every woman that comes to Mentor Walks to do one thing for another woman in the next few days, big or small. It's that commitment to supporting everybody around you, to paying it forward, and to take something away from your experience, whether it's what you've learned in the session or something you've promised to do or something you've learned that you want to apply, or whether it's the thought that you want to support another woman and walk away and do something with it. It's not just about keeping it in that tight circle of the walk itself. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. That's important. Now, before we pass over to our mentees to talk about their stories and what they've learned and their experiences, Ali, I know that your mentee Alice is here with us today, and there's a bit more of a story that you can both share around your experience at Mentor Walks and what happened afterwards. So Sam, if you can bring Alice into the spotlight and maybe give Sissy and Renee a bit of a break, then we'll go over to the two of you, and you can, Ali, you can guide the conversation and I'll sit here and listen.
Thanks, Adina. On my first mentor walk, I was brand new and I was really quite nervous. So I don't know if Alice actually knows that, but and Alice was the first mentee I was given with two others. And it was just the perfect start. And since then we've stayed in touch, and it was actually all started by Alice reaching out afterwards. So we'll go into that. But as Adina mentioned earlier, I'm really proud of my board placements, and I'm on the Tennis Tasmania board. I'm also on St Virgil's, and I was recently appointed to Dress for Success for Tasmania, which is an amazing charity. And I'm so excited to be working with them too. But Alice came with the question that she was considering getting onto boards and looking to the pathway onto boards, and then started digging into the conversation. But the fact that she came with such a precise piece of what she was considering really opened up that conversation amongst the ladies. And Alice, can I throw to you for a bit there of how we went?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know it was your first walk. So you hit it well. And yeah, I've always been sort of interested in getting on a board. I had a bit of a career change. So I was an accountant and now I work in tech, in sales. So I know that I'm not really going to reach the top of the career path as a consultant. The consultant is kind of the top. And so something to aim for me is to be on a board. And I was really excited to hear that Ali had that experience. We connected at the event, and then interestingly, when she talks about following up after, I then got offered a board role as a treasurer due to my accounting experience, but there were some things that were looking a bit red flag to me. I wasn't sure about doing that, and I reached out to Ali, and she was able to help me make a decision on whether to take it or not. So it was great to have someone who wasn't a friend or your mum who really understood, and that was Ali. So yeah.
That's really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that experience with us. I think it's quite amazing once you make the connections with people, that firstly, you see how generous people are, that they really do want to support you when they can. But as what happens with a lot of our mentors, all of them really, is that they're such busy women at the top of their careers that as much as they would love to help everybody that asks them, they just can't. And so when, as a mentee, you come to your mentor and you have an idea of precisely what you're after, and you put like parameters around it, it's so much easier to tackle the situation, and everybody gets a lot more value out of it rather than a general conversation. So Alice, it's pretty amazing that you were able to bring that all together and to approach Ali in that way. So I want to just take this opportunity quickly to thank Ali, Renee, and Sissy for sharing those experiences. And I'm now going to bring our other mentees into the room. Alice is already here, and we have Joanna Chen from Brisbane and Julia Naja from Wollongong. Each one of them has walked with one of our mentees who has just spoken. And so they're all here having had extensive mentor walks experience. And I know, Julia, you were saying the other day that this is like your 10th or 11th or 15th mentor walks event. So I'm dying to hear about that. Alice, we're going to start off with you because you were just sharing your experience. Tell us a bit about yourself. How many times you've been to mentor walks, what you've gotten out of it, how it's made a difference in your career. And I know we've heard a bit about that, but just tell us what you think our audience would really appreciate understanding and knowing from your experience at mentor walks.
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned, I work in tech now. So I'm a pre-sales consultant with Biz Design. Biz Design is a SaaS platform for enterprise architecture. So I work remotely from home, and I'm in Hobart. So Ali and I are both based in Hobart. My company doesn't even have a physical office in Australia. So that was really one of the drivers for me to get out to mentor walks. I wanted to sort of broaden my network. Even though I am a Tassie girl, I hadn't lived here for 10 years. I'd been living in Melbourne and overseas, and then I was working remotely. So I didn't have my work friends. I wasn't networking that way. So that's what got me along. Even though my sausage dog is good company at home, I'm an extrovert, so it's great to get out and talk with others. Some of the sort of most valuable learnings so far are what we just talked about. So coming prepared with something to talk about, and making sure you've got a question to ask. And then I think Ali touched on it too, following up after. So I remember we should have brought the photo along, but essentially Ali and I took a photo straight after with the Mentor Walk sign, and it had been raining and we didn't look our best, but I posted it onto LinkedIn and sort of tagged Mentor Walks and started to build the network that way. You often get other mentees adding you, and you can sort of expand your profile on there. And then I've also sort of seen when you do the introductions at the beginning of Mentor Walks, they talk about each mentor, and I've actually noticed mentors there that weren't mine, but reached out to them after, and we've been on our own little mentor walk. So you can reach out and just say, hey, I heard there was a charity that I was interested in here in Tassie, the Smith family. I said to the general manager, can I come along for a walk with you? She said, yeah, sure, meet me at lunchtime. And we went for a walk. So definitely, yeah, reaching out is really key, like Ali mentioned. Yeah, and I think the biggest difference in my work and career is having support outside of people that I've worked with. It's actually quite hard to have a mentor that works with you, because you need to ask questions that maybe aren't appropriate for the workplace. You might want to change your career, you might want a promotion, you might be looking to take their job. So it's good to have people outside of that. Yeah, and I think that's my part done.
Thank you. And I think, look, the networking effect of Mentor Walks is undeniable. Like you said, you hear about other people, you can approach them. And Sissy did a great thing. She told people in the chat here, if you haven't already seen it, drop your LinkedIn profile in, connect with anybody that speaks to you or that resonates with you. And it's a great way for you to expand your network. And the whole thing about powerful networks is you've got something to offer people and they've got something to offer you. There's a give about it. And I guess I'll say that one of the things that really surprised me about Mentor Walks, even though I've been doing this for such a long time now, is the fact that it's all give. Like, I think the mentors, we were expecting that the mentors were very generous in giving their time, and that it was all give from them. But what we've actually found is they take so much away with them. They see new perspectives on how to do things that they were doing 20 years ago, or they're learning new ways of working in an industry, or they learn something from a different industry than the one they operate in. And that diversity of thought and diversity of conversation is what makes being involved here so special, because we purposefully try and mix it up a bit so that you get to have these conversations with people that you wouldn't normally. And what you mentioned, Alice, about that, being able to have the confidential conversation is really, really important. It's one of the big things we talk about is you take away the learnings, but you leave the specifics of the story in the conversation of the walk. So that's a good point. Thank you. Joanna, why don't you tell us about your experience at Mentor Walks and what you've learned and how you've been able to apply it?
Thank you. So I think I met Cici a few years ago when I initially started my business. So I run an immigration agency here in Brisbane. We have a group of 10 people. So it has been very challenging from shifting from employee to employer, because the work I cover actually could include everything, including recruitment, training, supervising, and the finance part of work, as well as the marketing and sales. So I started from scratch, which can be very lonely if you're an entrepreneur, because specifically some of the work is actually quite challenging in terms of immigration policies. So I'm kind of the person who's really focused on my own work. So, and I spent a great amount of time doing research, and I like to do that. But when I start business, I realized I have to have people helping me. So, but it's very hard to discuss these matters internally. So when I met Cici, I was quite impressed with her and attitude of execution, and then speak up. And then I did approach her to ask a few of her help. She did help me with that. I thought, oh, well, that'd be great to join a group of women and to share some of inspiration in life. So the reason I joined the Mentor Works really, because my partners, they work actually in IT technology. So I don't have anything that to share with them to talk. And then in my situation, if someone wants to talk to me, maybe they just want to ask the visa part, instead of, professional growth. So that's the reason I joined Mentor Walk. And most of the valuable insight I took from lots of the mentors, especially Cici, was, her attitude execution. And she's not afraid to speak up and ask for help. She's not afraid to give help as well. And so the most important part, which I think it's really about mental work, it's helping us to really to understand things from different perspective. Because I always thought something that, for instance, about recruitment, I've been struggling to find, because our company expand really fast in the last 5 years. So when I were in the mental work, I will ask someone who's an HR professional, ask them, how do you actually find right people to the team? How do you set up the quality of you want to recruit them? Because it's actually take a lot of effort to find right people. And sometimes they have to be fitting the company culture as well. So this is inside, because most time I will think about myself and then try to Google it or probably ask ChatGPT. But if someone is professional from their own perspective, and then they have 20-year experience handling about recruitment process, they will be able to give you some insight how to to better frame in terms of the job description. How should I ask for people? Because our work is actually, we help tech professional to gain a shared permanent residency. Very specific niche market. Very hard, because they are tech executives working for big brands names. And then I have to really learn this myself. I'm good at immigration policies, but for tech, no, I'm not good at that at all. So this is an insight. And then in terms of what makes me feel different in Korea, I just feel if I have mental work, or we have female mentorship here, I can always, although I don't want to bother as a female thing, but I just feel that I can always ask someone to give me insight. I don't feel lonely anymore, that stuck with my work. I can always ask ask them probably to give me some opinions or inspire me what I should do. Of course, I'll act, but it's sometimes I just feel that I'm part of this circle. So I think for all female, who's working in the professional industry, they should stay in the circle. They shouldn't feel that they are known just along with their family members. Sometimes it's about career. Really, family members, they don't have obligation to share this with us. They have personal relationship. But I feel that a female need to stay in the circle, and they need to have. It has to be an arm reach. You can reach out professional for consultancy. Sometimes it's paid consultancy. I think it's actually worthwhile as well, because they spend 1 hour with you and to analyze your situation. So that's my share today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I think you're so right. It's so important to have people at arm's reach that you can turn to when you're stuck. I think so many people, and in particular, I see it with women, they don't, like at the very senior levels, that a lot of programs and a lot of membership organizations that you can join if you're in the C-suite area, or if you're very experienced in what you do. But there's a lot of women out there who are either early career or mid-career that just don't have the easy access to the circles or to the people that they can reach out to ask questions or to help them just get a little bit unstuck. So thank you for bringing that up. It's a really important point. And I hope that what we're doing is able to provide that for people in a way that's really like non-confrontational, that's unthreatening, that's just, that whole walking element of it as well, is that walking alongside each other in a small group. It's confidential. It's really just a way of connecting with people from all different levels of their careers, from all different types of careers. So I think, what we are doing is providing that opportunity for women to create circles and to continue the conversations as well. So I appreciate that you brought that up, Joanna. Thank you. Fantastic. Now, Julia, a veteran of Mentor Walks, tell us how you first found us and whatever it is that you think we need to know. I'm dying to hear of the lessons that you've learned while you've been with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just a little bit about me. I'm currently the business development and marketing manager at a local private mental health hospital in Wollongong. And I really joined Mentor Walks after hearing on the radio on an ad on I-98. And for me personally,
that radio advertising works. That's brilliant.
I was doing school drop-off.
Ali.
So yeah, and it really resonated with me. And I was at a point in my career where I was in mid-management for a really long time. I was navigating through all the changes in my career, trying to balance personal commitments, children versus career, how to wear the hats, how to do it all. Can I do it all? So I logged on at work and I was like, Googled mentor walks and saw that there was an upcoming one, and I just registered. And I really haven't looked back. So for me, by regularly participating in the mentor walks, it really allowed me to seek feedback, guidance, and network regularly. So every 8 weeks was a really good amount of time for me. So I would book it in my calendar, and it kind of created accountability because A, I paid for it, and B, it was in my calendar. So I had to do it. And I was always coming up with like crazy questions to ask or seek guidance, or even something that might have happened retrospectively. You know, there was this issue, this is what happened, this was my response, did I handle it well? And for the times that I didn't even have a question, I just really enjoyed being present and meeting and connecting with the new mentor at each time. And I think one of the main differences about being, I guess, a veteran is that knowing that I'm not alone, and what I was feeling was really shared across all of the mentees, but also the mentor that I was partnered up with. Like, they've been there, they've done that, and they've kind of overcome that. And I really get satisfaction knowing and that I have a walk coming up. And it's something that I set a goal for. And in 2022, I was like, I'm attending every single mentor walk, and I did it. And I set the same goal for 2023. So as we said, you know, connecting, I made sure that I got a photo at the end of the session, connected on LinkedIn. And now when I go to events, I see all the familiar faces, and it really allowed me to create a sense of community and engagement with really like-minded women who face similar challenges. So I think for me personally, if you could take anything away from mentor walks, it's you're in control. You don't have to be a passenger anymore. It's about taking those car keys back and getting into the driver's seat of your career. And all it takes is one mentor walk to really see the benefit and connection. So yeah, for me, it's that one walk, and I haven't looked back. I really haven't. And everything that I've achieved within the last 2 years has been because of mentor walks in Wollongong, and I guess the vision. And I just tell everybody about it. So yeah, that's it from me.
It's amazing. Thank you so much, Julia. And I'm very aware for everyone here that we keep talking about the benefits of mentor walks and how it works and how amazing it is and all the rest of it. Sounds like one big sales story. In fact, what I want to say is, for anyone that doesn't know, Mentor Walks is a non-profit. Our sole purpose here is about providing opportunities for women to get great, effective connections and have those challenging career conversations and create community for themselves. So when we talk about how amazing it is, it's really about bringing as many women in so that they can have those experiences and then step forward in their own worlds and their own careers. Not about us, it's all absolutely about you. And so I'm really grateful to all of you, Alice, Julia, and Joanna, and also to our mentors as well. Thank you so much for sharing these experiences and just having people understand, if they haven't been on a walk before, what it's all about and how it can really make a difference to your world. It's really important that we all understand that we're not alone, that we don't have unique challenges, and that there are so many people around who can help us walk through those challenges. So it is time for some questions. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. And if you've got someone in particular that you'd like to answer it, please drop their name in there as well. I'm going to start with one. We had a few questions that were submitted before we started here. So I'm going to ask Renee to speak up on this one. There's quite a few questions around coming back after a prolonged break or maternity leave and changing careers, like understanding that the space that you're in isn't quite right for you anymore, and that you want to look at changing careers or changing roles or changing businesses. Can you talk to us a little bit about like how you would go about or how you would advise people to take steps to change careers?
Sure. So often I would really encourage a mentee to look at what I guess the strengths and weaknesses are of an alternate career choice. And I would also add to that opportunities and threats. So yes, I'm using the old SWOT model, but I think it's important to, sometimes when we're on parental leave, we may not be in contact with our existing organisation as much as we should be or could be, and we start to develop or diversify, I guess, our thinking. I think it's paramount that we do some research on what we really want, what is our purpose, and what do we want to achieve, and create what I would call a career plan for the next 5 years. And then look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats of a new industry, environment or organisation, and how that fits with your 5-year career plan that you've mapped out for yourself. So I guess the good old saying, the grass is not always greener, is true in some cases, but equally having the courage, the curiosity and the challenge for changing career could be the right time for you as well. So I think it's about doing the analysis before you jump ship.
Sounds like very, very good advice. Thank you. So Sissy, to you for a second, can you talk to us a bit about how to build a great brand, both for yourself and for your business?
Right. Thanks, Adina. And that's a great question. I think before, when I started in my career, I never thought about branding at all. And, you know, throughout the career, the time when I started thinking about branding was actually when I escalated. I think I started thinking about it maybe back in, I think maybe 2015 thereabouts, or no, 2013 thereabouts. And that's when I started thinking, well, how can I use LinkedIn better? I had a very plain profile back then, and I didn't have many connections. I think I only had like maybe 200 or something, very limited. And thinking, okay, so how am I going to elevate my career if nobody know about me? And when they actually look on the LinkedIn and trying to find you, they say, oh yeah, you only have 200 connections, that you can't be very well networked. And so nowadays also there are so many people that recruiters or business owners. For me, LinkedIn is so crucial nowadays that I just actually use LinkedIn today to reach out to people in Houston. I'm in Houston right now, in Houston, Texas, and I reached out and to I think about 40 people that I already in my first degree connections, and then one of them was actually a colleague back in 20 odd years ago, and so we're catching up and potentially doing some business later. So that's, and that's about connections. But maybe circling back to branding, what's so important about that is if you look at my LinkedIn profile, I've got I was interviewing Steve Wozniak, Apple co-founder, on stage, and he's the computer engineer and I'm the M&A engineer. So a lot of the times I get a lot of inbound requests for advice for M&A services, because people looked up on me on LinkedIn and found that, yes, she seems to have a lot of experience, and she's interviewed Steve Wozniak, so that gives you instant credibility. So if you don't have that kind of set up in terms of branding for on LinkedIn, then it's difficult for people to find you. And you might have Facebook or other profiles, but it may be important to actually separate your personal profile and your business profile. I guess we're not sure how many people in the audience are more or business people or employees, but it's equally important for employees and business. And you can have different profiles for business and for employees. So I just feel like branding is very, very important, even if you're not going to be in front of, standing on stage. If someone was trying to find you for work, you need to be branded so that they can actually see, hey, can I trust this person? Can I trust them to help me on this particular aspect? So I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it's very helpful. Thank you. There's a lot of really good tips in there. Ali, you work in a very large organization and you've been there for a long time. And I'm sure a lot of people in that organization, especially in the last few years, are working remotely. Can you give some guidance on how to have an impact on your team when you're working remotely? You don't actually get to sit with them. And how do you show your leaders and your manager, not you, but how would you advise people to show leaders and managers that they want to progress in their career without actually being in the office with them and without being in front of people and sort of being able to proactively do things that they see?
Absolutely. Again, I'm based in Hobart and all my direct managers I feed up to on the mainland. A lot are in the metropolitan cities, and most of the team that I lead are actually in Victoria. So I was leading a team during COVID that we couldn't leave their houses for 5 kilometres, and I was living in a beautiful island, travelling around, living my own life. So it is so true. The number one way, and I have actually managed my way up from, I was a work experience kid 20 years ago who's now progressed up the chain, is to tell people when you do something. So at the end of every year, I write an email to my boss and I highlight all the exciting things that the team that we've achieved throughout the year. So supporting community, CSR activations, it might be financial things, and I highlight the leaders that have done that. And part of the thing I also say to my teams is send me emails and tell me what you've done, and really promote it, and ask for sponsorship. Some of the women I've supported who've gone on to other roles and that, they just came and they said to me, will you sponsor me and support me into doing something else? And it wasn't always even necessarily in the same field that I'm in. It was just that I would know people and be able to assist with connection from there. And then I cannot bang on about LinkedIn enough. If you have a look at my LinkedIn, I see it's just had a fair few people linked in there. I highlight all my team members on LinkedIn. I celebrate anniversaries on LinkedIn. I celebrate their achievements on LinkedIn, and also what we're doing as a team. Because if you don't tell people, people won't know. And I think as a woman, we think, oh, I'll just do it and they'll recognize it. How do you know unless you put it up there in bold lights, and let everybody know? And I think sometimes we get embarrassed to celebrate what we do. Even coming on here and having a chat, I think we're like, oh, should I say it? Should I? Now, again, telling everybody, taking a photo, putting in, saying, I did this. And I hope Alice takes a photo up today and puts it up and says she was on her first mentor walks piece, because again, that's that piece of actually putting it out there. It's not real until it's on LinkedIn. There you go. I'm not even work for LinkedIn, but I should, guys, LinkedIn, send me some merch.
Yes, we'll see what we can organise. Okay, well, I think we've got so many questions that were submitted beforehand and so many incredible people have put their LinkedIn profiles up in the chat. So please connect where you can. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all the questions, but I want to take this opportunity to thank Sissy, Ali and Renee so much, and Joanna, Alice and Julia. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your journeys. It's really valuable to everyone here to see what can happen when you make these amazing connections and how you can really have an impact on your career. So thank you again. We really appreciate you all being involved and all being prepared to be so open and share your stories. The next event that we have, which is a virtual event, is virtual mentoring on the 21st of June. You can book on our website. We have a survey that Sam's going to put in the chat. Please fill it in if you get a second. It's really important for us to get the feedback from all of you to understand what you liked, what you think we can improve on. It really helps us create amazing and impactful events for you. And that is it for tonight. Thank you all again for being here. Thank you everybody who was on the panel for discussing everything. And I hope you all have good evenings. And Sissy, go to bed. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning now. Thank you all. Bye.